Hey everybody, Alex from SeemsGoodMagic.com here, and we're going to be talking about Guilds of Ravnica, the brand new mechanics, what else the set features, and specifically how fun I think this will be as a draft format. So, I've picked a few cards out with each mechanic. We're going to talk about just a few. I'm going to keep this video as brief as possible. We'll talk about the mechanics, what I think, how fun they'll be. Let's get this going here. Alright, so we've got Selesnya, green-white, Convoke. So this is a repeat mechanic. Convoke is a pretty good mechanic though. It's cool. As an example, we've got Impervious Great Worm, which is perhaps the most exciting one since it's the biggest creature. Yes, we finally found a creature bigger than Emrakul. So we've got Impervious Great Worm, 10 mana, 16/16 indestructible. Jeez. I bet most people still wish it probably had Trample rather than Indestructible. I think I'd make that trade. But it's also got Convoke, so your creatures can help cast this spell. Each creature you tap while casting the spell pays for 1 or 1 mana of that creature's color. Very, very cool card. Very exciting to see something so big. And it looks like Feed Me Seymour. Yeah, it looks like Little Shop of Horrors plant right there. And then I thought we should mention at least a great Convoke enabler that I'm kind of looking forward to. I hope they have quite a few more cards like this in the set. It would make Convoke a lot more exciting to play around with and synergize with in Limited. So we have Imara, Soul of the Accord, green-white for a 2/2 legendary elf cleric. And whenever Imara becomes tapped, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. So it's clear why this card is good. It's a bear that you can attack with and make 1/1 lifelinkers, or you can use it to help with your Convoke and make 1/1 lifelinkers, which then can be tapped and used for more Convoke. So Imara is probably, one of the more powerful examples of Convoke synergy, but I really liked that a lot. I'm looking forward to that mechanic. I think that's a great limited mechanic. I've played with Convoke before, maybe you all have as well, so you remember Convoke being just fine. I don't actually remember it being like an outstanding fun mechanic or anything, but it's a cool mechanic. It works well with the colors that it's in. Green tends to have, as we all know, big fat fatties, and being able to cast them at a reduced cost is very helpful, so I like that. Let's talk about the next one. So we have the Boros Legion, which would be red-white, and they have Mentor. So the card I decided to feature for Mentor is another rare. We have the Legion Warboss. So this is a 3 mana, 2/2 rare goblin soldier. It has Mentor. So Mentor is whenever this creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature with lesser power. And Legion Warboss also happens to have an ability that synergizes well with its own mechanic. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. That token gains haste until end of turn and attacks this combat if able. So, pretty clear how this works. You play the war boss. I guess if you pre-combat, you even get a hasty goblin. But then the next turn, maybe you can attack with your war boss, and then you get to pump the red goblin that has to attack anyway, so you're attacking for 4. Mentor is actually a pretty cool mechanic. I think it's deceptively strong too, because when you look at it, you're like, well, you're only putting a 1/1/+1 counter on something. It's not like that outrageous, but I like that you're actually getting sort of a permanent effect that affects something else as well, and it's powerful in that it's in your aggro colors, so getting sort of a permanent benefit outside of one card, a split up benefit like that. That deals more damage, I think it's going to be good. I think Mentor is going to be a powerful, aggressive mechanic. In a little bit, we'll talk about why it doesn't exactly synergize as well as some of the other mechanics do with each other. This seems to be a little bit more on its own, and you'll figure out what I'm talking about in a little bit. So let's go on to the next mechanic, which is Surveil. And this is an awesome mechanic. Now, I know maybe some of you are like, how is it awesome? It's just Scry. Well, let me tell you, it's certainly better than Scry. But House Dimir, blue-black. Let's look at the 2 cards I decided to feature for this one. So we have Deadly Visit, 3 and 2 black, sorcery, it's a common, destroy target creature, and Surveil 2. So Surveil is, Surveil 2, look at the top 2 cards of your library, then put any number of them into your graveyard, and the rest on top of your library in any order. So different than Scry in that it puts cards in your graveyard. Why is that better than Scry? Well, a lot of cards can use your graveyard as a resource. And in fact, within this own set, we have 2 mechanics that use your own graveyard as a resource. So this is, I think Surveil is fantastic. Very, very strong. Still feels, I mean, flavorfully, absolutely feels correct. Scry doesn't actually belong to any one color. I think we've seen Scry probably at this point in every color. I might be wrong about that, but it's certainly not limited to just 2 colors, whereas it looks like Surveil is going to be limited to blue and black. So the other one I featured was Sinister Sabotage. 1 and 2 blue. It's an instant. Counter target spell, Surveil 1. So that's kind of a cool one, a strictly better cancel. I like it. I think Surveil is great. Like I said, stronger than Scry in almost every case. I would say it is stronger than Scry because you use your graveyard as a resource. So I think Surveil is going to be a very powerful mechanic, increasing your card quality while simultaneously maybe giving you card advantage. If like I said, you get some cards that synergize with it, like this next mechanic, the Is It one. Jumpstart. So this is the blue-red mechanic, and the card I featured for this one is called Direct Current. So Direct Current is 1 and 2 red. It's a sorcery, a common. It deals 2 damage to any target, and then you can jumpstart it. So jumpstart is you may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a card in addition to paying its other costs, then exile this card. Does this mechanic sound familiar? It's very similar to Retrace. The difference being Retrace, you had to discard a land card, but then you could just keep recasting it from your graveyard. This is you can discard any card and pay the cost, but then you have to exile it. So it's like one additional effect. It's basically like you get a little Snapcaster Mage on this card. So Direct Current is cool. 3 mana sorcery that deals 2 damage and is color intensive is obviously not good, but being able to divvy it up, use it later, it's very versatile. I think Direct Current is going to be a great common just solely because of Jumpstart. Now, what I was just talking about, Surveil and Jumpstart work really well together. So you cast a Surveil card, maybe you want to just, maybe you don't want to draw Direct Current for some reason, you're digging for something else. You can just put Direct Current in your graveyard, and look at that, Surveil just gave you card advantage. You now have a spell that you can cast from your graveyard. So very cool how that's going to work. Let's talk about the last mechanic here, which is Undergrowth, and this is for the Golgari Swarm, which would be black-green. And Undergrowth, the cards I've featured here, are Necrotic Wound and Moodmark Painter. So Necrotic Wound is 1 black, instant, uncommon. It's got Undergrowth. Target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. And then Moodmark Painter is 2 and 2 black for a 2/3 common human shaman. It's got Undergrowth. When it enters the battlefield, target creature gains menace and gets +X/+0, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So once again, yet another mechanic that synergizes extremely well with Surveil. And in fact, both of these share a color with Surveil too. Jumpstart, Jumpstart is it being blue, and Undergrowth black sharing with Surveil. So those 3 just seem to be in a little, a sort of league of their own, if you will. They kind of are doing stuff together that works synergistically really well, whereas you have Mentor that's kind of off on its own, doing its own aggressive thing, and Convoke letting you pay reduced costs, but not really synergizing extremely well with any other mechanic. So I think that's going to be a kind of an interesting dynamic. I think that's specifically in Limited going to direct, I feel like, a lot of... It's going to be easier to build decks, I think, if you're focusing on Surveil, Jumpstart, and Undergrowth, because all 3, or I should say Jumpstart and Undergrowth, synergize well with Surveil. So I feel like Surveil in itself is going to be a high pick mechanic. It's going to be high pick because it's good on its own, regardless of synergies, but because it synergizes so well with 2 other mechanics in the set. I think that's a big deal, and I think that is going to make that strategy a lot more viable. There's going to be a lot more cool little synergies like that. I really like that. We'll have to see more as the set progresses, but we're not done yet. What else does Guilds of Ravnica feature? It also features split cards and hybrid mana. And for the example there, I got, what do you know? The best of both, yeah. So we've got an actual split card. And remember, you might have played with Fuse, which is similar. It's also on split cards, but Fuse let you play both the split cards together if you paid like a premium cost. This is going back to the old split cards, so you can only cast one half of this. And this is Find, which is hybrid, green and black, meaning you can pay either any combination of 2 black and 2 green. And this is a really strong card, but it is rare. So it's return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand for 2 mana, which is just an insane cost. Macabre Waltz does that at common, you might say, but you don't have to discard a card with Find. And then Finality, which is 4 generic, a black and a green for a sorcery. You may put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, then all creatures get -4/-4 until end of turn. Also very strong. I like both of those sides. It's like card advantage on one end or board wipe on the other. That's a really strong split card. Like I said, it is rare, so I think that's perfectly fine. So initial impressions on the set, once again, I like the mechanics. I think mechanically it's great. Like I said, Selesnya Conclave, having Convoke, it makes sense that you'd want to cheat out your creatures for a reduced cost. I'd like to see more of those synergies, like I said, like Amara, Soul of the Accord. I hope they have some commons and uncommons with becomes tapped, get something abilities. That would be very cool. I would love to see that. We've got Mentor. I'd like to see more mechanics synergizing with that. There is an inflatable card that it has a super expensive cost to inflate it, though. But still, it makes sense that synergizes well with Mentor. Surveil is looking excellent, very strong. Just great card quality increasing. I really like that a lot. Jumpstart, once again, more card advantage. It just, all of this like card advantage stuff is looking really fun. We've seen Undergrowth before. This is the first time that it actually has an ability word attached to it. Formerly, you just saw it on cards like this has, power and toughness equal to number of creatures in your graveyard. But now they've actually attached a mechanic to it. It's much like when they added reach to cards that used to say can block creatures with flying, or when they added death touch to cards that whenever this deals damage to something, destroy the creature that was blocked or blocking it, whatever. They finally added an actual word to it, which I think is fine. So that's cool. Hybrid mana usually makes for some, it allows you to play more cards in different styles of deck. I'm a little undecided on how much I like hybrid mana. From a viewpoint of limited, I think it's going to be good. From a viewpoint in constructed, I don't know. You'd have to ask somebody else about that. But split cards also, it looks like this is a pretty dynamic set. We've got a lot going on. It looks like there's some pretty clear strategies to pursue. So I hope that was informative for you. I look forward to seeing more spoilers, as I'm sure you all do. And tune in for the draft videos. I'm sure I'm going to have plenty more along the way, and plenty of Guilds of Ravnica as soon as the set drops. So we'll talk to you next time.